Welcome, friends, to You Only Go Once, also known as YOGO. I'm Eileen Grimes, and I am joined with my co host, Cheryl Contafio. This episode, I honestly have been looking forward to since we booked our guest today. I've heard amazing things, and I just cannot wait to dive into this conversation. So, Cheryl, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Thanks, Eileen. So we're here today with Michelle Vitali. Michelle has been a working artist for 4 decades. She toggles among multiple fields within the arts, painting, drawing, illustration, forensic arts, and sculpture. So Michelle, welcome and thank you for joining us. We're so excited.
Thank you for having me. What an honor.
Yeah, I've just heard so many things about you, and I have a million questions, but we have some guidance in this, obviously, to help us stay on the right path,
Yeah.
or at least
I
some
like
kind of
wandering.
guided
It's
path.
okay.
Me
Right.
too. Oh, me too. Me too. Well, we'll start with the first sort of piece of this. We have these moments in our lives that change and shape how we see the world. And what was a moment in your life that radically changed how you approached this one life that we live?
That is a huge question, and there are many answers, but I will cut it down to just a couple. How's
Okay.
that?
Sounds great. Good.
Not one, can't do one.
No. Mm-mm.
There were so many that taught me different lessons, and I think that that's the point here is that if you're just open to the things that are happening to you and saying what went wrong or what went right here, you question it and then you come up with a plan that actually changes your behavior afterwards. So I had ones from when I was a kid that taught me how to be very careful about speaking the truth to people.
Mm.
Mm,
I have had experiences where I got to see grinding poverty and obscene wealth, which changed how I view everything. Because when I was in school, I remember thinking that there was a sliding scale. If you can imagine a sliding scale with like maybe five tick marks on it for people who are less well off and people who are more well off. If you took that, which was my worldview at the time, and then you travel around the world and you start to see something that has 30 tick marks on it, you can't even believe
yeah.
the extraordinary poverty and the sickening levels of wealth. These are things that actually shaped me, right? But then a more recent one is one that, Cheryl and I were talking about fairly recently,
Hmm.
that I didn't realize that I was actually preparing for what I'm now doing, which is forensic art. I sort of accidentally prepared for a field that I never even thought of entering until I did a research project. And then it was so warmly received by the right people, I might add, that it just completely changed my life. And you have to be open to, first of all, thinking, do I even want to ask the question for the research project? And then do I even want to propose? And I had people pushing me too, saying, this is really good quality research. You really need to do something with it. And of course, I didn't even know what to do. So I got the help of excellent people like my friend and colleague, Dr. Lenore Barbian. And she said, no, you got to do this. So I did it. And it just was so, again, well received that I essentially had a career change without even looking for one. So you've got to just be open to that sort of thing. And I think those are a few. And I've had so many because I guess I think of my experiences, my life experiences, as things that teach me how to live, how to be better, how to improve the circumstances of people in my life and people in the world, and least of all myself, but also myself. So every one of them is sort of a changing experience. And those are a few of the bigger ones that absolutely shape who I am as a person now.
I mean, I love that concept too of just what is it, the 1 degree of change, right?
Mhm.
When you've changed 1 degree over time, it's actually a huge change, but you might not see it all at once. And I think that's so helpful for some people because I think you just have to have this one moment. It's this one Hollywood moment when all of a sudden all the pieces come together and bam, I know what I'm doing, or I've hit the magic ending, and it's just that's not really how it works.
No, no, we're not static, but we're also not that dynamic. I mean, sometimes you'll have an event that, oh, the scales completely fall from your eyes, but those are very special moments. But mostly our lives are very, very dynamic, but things change in increments and you're the frog in the pot. You don't know what's happening. And then you just have to be open to it when you get, sort of external signs that things are shifting and you're shifting. I'm not the same person I was 20 years ago. I'm not the same person I was when I was teaching little Cheryl in high school. I'm a totally different person now. And it's because of all these experiences and the dynamic of life that
Mhm.
just causes you, to kind of keep reinventing yourself if you're alive, which I try to be. There are a
Yeah.
lot of people who are sort of like living in a sort of a sleep state or something. And I don't even understand that. Right. And I know you two don't
No.
either.
Mm-mm, mm-mm, mm-mm. It's amazing when you have those moments where it's always like just a little bit of light. It's almost like you peer through another door and it's like, oh, I want to go that way. This is
Mhm.
really cool, right? And just on the three examples that you gave us, I'm like, I don't know which door I want to pick to dive further because your world has been so interesting. And of course, we've kept up through social media, right? Like we've been able to see our lives through Facebook, although I was introduced to a new term called boomer book by my cousin's.
That's it.
Wait, what? Please tell me.
Boomer book, I'm
Yeah.
sure, is the term for Facebook because everybody's parents are on it. It's
Okay.
oh,
Michelle, I've seen you share your students' art, which has been such a like what a gift to see, the fruits of your labor and also like some of the places that you've traveled. I don't remember the place that you went, but you were drawing, I knew you were drawing different faces and there were a lot of big bugs. That's what I remember from the post.
yeah.
And that was like, I was like, where is she now? What is happening now? Could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Honestly, it ties back to one of the earlier points. So,
Mhm.
so allow me to back up a half a step.
Please.
When I was talking about, seeing great poverty and great wealth and just different life, the
Mhm.
way that different people live around the world, I think that Americans don't do that enough. And
Mm.
so, one of the things I've done as a teacher is to try to encourage study abroad as much as possible. And by that, I really feel the need powerfully every single time I say study abroad to explain that study abroad is not a trip where you're staying in a hotel and being led around by a tour guide for 2 weeks.
Right.
If you did that, that's great, but you went on a tour and got college credit for it.
Right.
Real study abroad means that it's an immersive experience. You're staying in, something like an apartment in Florence rather than a hotel in Florence. You're staying for a length of time. You have to make your way without language skills, perhaps. Those are the kinds of experiences that help you to understand a city. You're not going to a resort. You're not being coddled by tour guides, none of that.
Mhm.
So I like those kinds of trips. I benefited from one of those trips. My junior year in college, I went to Italy and lived in Rome. And that was another one of these life changing experiences. As much as possible, I try to bring that to other people. I've taken them to Italy, to Florence multiple times, groups of students, and we do exactly that. It's sort of an immersive experience. No hotels, none of that, no tours. They follow me around. So I guess I'm their
Mhm.
unofficial tour guide.
Yep. Yep.
But the trip that you're talking about is a trip to a field school in Belize. It's called the Maya Research Program.
That was it.
Yep.
Yes.
And
Yes.
they do amazing work. And what they're doing is unearthing some of the Maya structures from the period. Okay, I'm going to flub this now, but let's say it's the late classic Maya period. One of the things I did was I decided to do scientific illustration with students in the field. So they could
Mhm.
do artifact illustration, for example, with real artifacts that had fairly recently come out of the ground, by the archaeologists. They were living in and among all the scientists that were down there. We were not really in any way, by no stretch of the imagination, could this be considered a tour group because we were living in the jungle in tin
Right.
huts,
Yep. I remember that.
just outside of the jungle, I should say.
Mhm.
And yeah, there were few amenities. I think the food was outstanding, but other than that, that was a fluke because we had great cooks. Generally, it was rough living. And students had never
Mhm.
experienced anything like that. They had to get used to things like not having electricity, having big insects and even scorpions and stuff sharing their homes, their little homes,
Mhm.
and communal living because we all ate at picnic tables communally too. And you had to be up at a certain time and hop on a truck. And it was a pickup truck. We all just hopped in the back and went over rutted roads into the jungle, into the site, and then did our thing. And by our thing, it was the archaeologist thing. We were visitors. They were doing a variety of things. Scientific illustration could be botanicals, it could be the animals. We had the privilege of being the people that the howler monkeys, dropped. They would literally pelt things at us. Usually,
Oh my
usually their
goodness.
own poop. That's what they do. So they just pelted us with things while we were trying to, do little watercolors. a
Hmm.
certain plant on the jungle floor, whatever. So anyway, that was an amazing experience for them, especially because we were in and among scientists, and these people had a very different kind of focus than we did, and certainly than tourists
Hmm.
would. New things were coming out of the ground. I mean, it was like an exciting night when there was a great find that day. It was such a thrilling experience for those students to have. It was just an opportunity. We knew somebody there. We were able to set it up with my university, and so we brought students there for a few years, and then the pandemic hit, so we stopped. We might again,
Hmm.
but at the moment it's just kind of stalled.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
pandemic stalled. And some of the exciting things too that I got to work on, because I had my own work while I was down there besides teaching the students. In the evening, I would work on reconstructions, because one of the ways that forensic artists practice is to work on historical cases. So they had people coming out of I say being excavated, not coming out of the ground, sounds zombie like, but being excavated. And they had a couple that had the modified cranium. They had the very long,
Yeah.
shaped skulls that happened in their youth. And that was a really particular challenging problem that I wanted to deal with. I wanted to grasp like how to deal with that, because it's a special kind of perspective. It's a different kind of drawing. I just had to deal with it. And this was my opportunity. So I did it. And that's some of the work that you saw, Cheryl, for sure.
Yeah, it was really fascinating. Those pictures from that time frame, I was like, wow, this is really cool. Hey, you know who else went to Belize?
Oh,
Eileen.
you
I sure
did.
did.
She
Yeah.
did.
So when I was
Yes.
getting my master's in education, we went down there for 2 weeks to Dangriga. So I think there were 12 of us teachers at that point. So we were down there. We were with families that were down there, and then we were working in a local school that was there. I got to go to one of the tropical rainforests with the kids on one of their field trips. It was so amazing because we got to be in it. I wasn't at a resort. I wasn't at all the stuff that the people go down to and they love Belize or
Right, but they love the snorkeling, they love the big blue hole, they love
Right.
the
yes.
beaches. I
Mm-hmm.
get it, I get it, I get it. And it's so
Mm-hmm.
good when you can get away from that, because
Mhm.
it's a gorgeous country. It has so much to offer. And so I'm really thrilled that you got to go down there as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was for me in that was there was one day I started crying. It was like a weekend and there was something overpowering for me to see how much humanity is the same wherever you are, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we all have our human problems. We're all the same. We really are in so many ways. It might take shape in different forms and cultures and things like that, but we all want love. We all want to be seen. We all want to belong. Like it was just, I don't know, there was something really overpowering for me in that. And I think having that experience somewhere else just really hit me hard and like seeing that humanity and connection between all of us.
That's the beauty of traveling. That's
Absolutely.
literally why I travel and why I
Yeah.
avoid tours, no
Yeah.
kidding. So that's the
Yeah.
way to do it. And you get those sort of personal insights. But I would also say that you get cultural insights as well. And
Mm-hmm.
just to give you a really, what I thought was a stunning example of this, was the students thought the country was Maya. And I said, no, 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 no. I mean, yes, it was, but they are a minority population in their own country.
Hmm.
Maya people,
Mm-hmm.
I want to say 10%. I'm kind of winging this right now, but about 10% of the
Sure.
population is actually Maya descendants now, because of the decimation, because of colonialism.
Yeah.
Correct.
I
Yep.
had Maya people. I had one say to me when I had done the first reconstruction that I ever did down there, and it was a very emotional night, because they were the people that the archaeologists who had unearthed this young woman were there, and they were crying. It was
Hmm.
like a stunning night. And another person who was from from the local population, he said to me, and he kind of waved a bill at me. The money still has the queen. It's an independent country.
Yeah, right,
Queen of
Yeah.
correct.
England is
Yeah.
on their money. He's like, how about we get her face, meaning the one I had just done, on the
Mm.
money? And I thought,
Oh, wow. All right.
and then I started to cry. But you see, my
Mhm.
point is that just that whole idea of like freedom and colonialism and who's in control of your own destiny and all that, that sort of some cultural questions like that, that really have to do something with a lot of countries, including obviously the United States of America, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
we were a colony, we were colonies, plural.
Mhm.
Sure.
So I think that it gives a whole different twist, even on your own self definitions, even on your own country's self definitions. When you go and experience where it's really still happening live now, this
Yeah.
country's been independent since the 80s.
So this gave me more insight as to why you were there. So obviously Facebook gives you a 2D experience as
Yeah.
to what you've been doing, right?
Yeah.
Obviously travel is at the core of where do we go next? What would you say is the most impulsive trip or the most impulsive thing you've ever done? And what did you learn from that?
Okay. So I'll start with the most impulsive trip. First of all, I
Okay.
do a lot of impulsive things. So this is a hard question for me.
Love it.
Okay. It's kind of defines me. But I've tried to contain myself over all these years. In terms of traveling, there's one trip that was actually a little dangerous that I maybe shouldn't have taken, but I did it. It was at the end of that year when I went to study in Rome. I was with some friends. The friends went home, and I was like, I'm just going to stay. I can afford to. For whatever reason, I could stay longer and not, it wasn't going to impact me financially. And I definitely wasn't ready to go home. A lot of people were ready to go home after all that time.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I just decided to stay, and I was completely by myself. And so I would have been, what's a junior in college, like 21, maybe 22. I don't know.
Yep.
I was around that age. And I just stayed and I traveled around by myself. And the only part that was slightly dangerous, and I had people kind of warn me off of it, and I listened to my gut and I listened to them. And I said, okay, I won't do this, which was I took a ferry to Sardinia and I wandered around Sardinia for a while. Sardinia wasn't the dangerous part. The idea was to continue down to Tunisia, to go to a Muslim country as a woman unaccompanied at that time. And maybe still, I don't know.
Right.
I didn't do that. So I just extended my stay in Sardinia. So what I got in Sardinia was a bunch of people who, at that point, especially in the area where I was, didn't really see Americans very often because I tend to stay away from the touristy places.
Mm-hmm.
They were enthralled and they treated me like, Mick Jagger came to the island or whatever. So they were giving me moped tours every day. You got to see this. You got to see this. I didn't understand much of what they said because I spoke some Italian, but they were speaking a very strong dialect.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I just went along for everything. And,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, could have been murdered, but it didn't happen. So, and what I did see was an archaeological site that one guy was working on, and it went into or came out of, however you want to look at it, the ocean. It was on the beach.
Oh,
And
wow.
imagine an entire city or small city
Yeah.
going into the ocean from the beach. And this guy was like, oh, come on, I got the key. It's like, okie doke.
Right.
I would have never seen that. It's the kind of thing you just have to say, this looks like a good guy. I'm going to go with. It was like completely innocent. He just was so proud of this archaeological site he worked on, and I would have never seen it any other way. Really glad I did that.
Yeah, there's something really important about listening to your gut in both senses. There's just some kind of inner knowing that we have. I know I don't listen to it all the time, but I know when I do, it's telling me the right thing, whether it's not to go somewhere or to do something. Like when I went paragliding recently, I'm like, this is happening and I'm just going to go jump off a mountain. There are things that are, whatever you want to call that, tell us and lead us into these experiences and ways of life. And I think it's so important to sometimes just listen to that. It seems like it took you in the right direction.
Oh yeah. Well, especially the danger ones. I had none of that with that young man. He just seemed like he was super enthusiastic, and he had credentials and he had a key to the archaeological site. So, it was kind of cool. It was beyond cool. It was exceptional. It's the kind of site that wasn't even really, like, archaeologists knew about it, but nobody else did. It was not open for business or anything like that.
Yeah.
It was in its state of becoming the thing that it may someday welcome people or whatever, or maybe it did. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's
What
so
were you
cool.
studying at the time?
I was studying art at Tyler School of Art in Rome. I had to transfer schools because my own school didn't have a program. So I just switched to another school, went to their program in Rome, and then came back and switched back into my own program. It was kind of standard for Philadelphia schools to do that. So yeah, I was there as a painter. I made bigger strides in my painting that year for super obvious reasons that hopefully don't require explanation. But that's another great reason to get out of your own comfort area and go somewhere else and figure it out. And honestly, I've been doing that kind of my whole life. Once I realized that, shaking it up is really, really good, on a regular basis now, I'll shake things up, and it could be in ways big and small. So it could be something big like that, or taking a whole bunch of kids who have never been outside of Pennsylvania to Belize and into the forest. It also could be small things. Like I've had a weird practice over my entire life. What am I, 62 now or so? Every 5 years or so, I'll still take a course. Just at college, I'll just take a course for no reason except love of learning and just being challenged. I'm fighting against that potential stagnancy. And
Mm.
also, I just don't believe humans are static. We're not meant to be static.
Yeah, I was raised by two teachers. My dad was a math teacher, my mom was a music teacher. So for them, it was like, you will be a lifelong learner.
Yeah.
It's not really an option. You're going to learn to love learning. I've taken that with me now. And, now that I have my own kids, I don't care if you can memorize whatever, but like, I want you to love learning, and that is going to serve you.
Oh, loving learning will serve you. And there's a difference between learning stuff and being educated anyway. And it sort of reminds me of the
Right.
quote. I'm forgetting whose quote it is. Maybe it's Einstein's. That sounds too easy, though. That education is what remains after you've forgotten everything you learned in school. That's the
Ooh.
key, right? That's
Hmm.
the key. I just ended human anatomy class, right? And I told my students that, you're going to forget all the names of all these muscles and bones. You're going to forget them. That's okay. Here's how to retain the stuff that I want you to retain and should be retained for the good of your artwork. And hopefully that made a dent. Who knows?
At least one.
Oh no, I have great
Yeah, I was
students.
gonna
I'm sure
say,
it's more than that, but
listen, Michelle
if
has a legacy of people who she's impacted. I'm one of
Right.
them.
Oh,
So yeah.
well, all you can do is send them off with those wishes and, air kisses
Hmm.
and wish them well and
Hmm.
have a lovely life. And it's such an act of hope to let them all go. It's like your own children, you're not other people's children that you teach. You just wish them well and hope that they get everything that they should get out of it. But at least kind of give them permission not to feel bad. 3 months from now, are they going to remember the names of the sternomastoid muscle? Probably not. But that's okay. Doesn't matter. That's not what matters, right?
No.
Einstein said it. Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Right. I'll double
Whoever
check.
said it,
Yeah,
he
we'll
was
double check
smart.
that one. Yeah. I love that you said you've lived your life through the lens of impulsivity. I mean, basically that's what you're doing. Like, oh, that looks neat.
How else has impulsivity changed your life?
I think it's made me reactive to what's in front of me, which makes me effective, whether it's at teaching or anything else. Let me give you the most basic dumb example. It's not even a good example because any good teacher can do it. If you're talking to your class and you're losing them, their eyes are glazed over,
Mhm.
what do? You completely turn on a dime and switch it up completely. You know how
Yeah.
to do that, right? The inability to do that, we've all had. We've all had teachers who can't do that, right? They
Yeah.
just
Yes.
plod along.
Hmm.
It doesn't
Hmm.
matter if they lost us a half an hour ago, right?
Hmm.
I just feel very reactive and alive because I have to be. I'm a teacher, but I kind of like to live that way. It's just more exciting. Like I might have plans if I'm in Florence, because I used to go to Florence a lot. If I'm in Florence and I have plans to go to dinner at one place, but then I pass this place that smells amazing, looks
Hmm.
really cool,
Hmm.
completely off the map, why wouldn't I just switch my plans and go do that?
Right.
So I think I just am open to change really, really quickly. And I'm completely fine with that, regardless. So, because sometimes it's for a negative reason, like I've lost the students, or it's for a
Yeah.
positive reason, like this other thing seems like a much better idea. So, in very small ways, like in my day to day living, I don't have any problem with that. My problem is a little bit the opposite. It took me probably until my 30s to actually have a very regular schedule.
Okay.
I'm the kind of person who likes to have a free form day,
Yep.
open to anything. Jobs obviously forced me to do that, but I kind of like the open possibility of that. And so I've finally, of course I reached a balance at some point, but my natural tendency was to do that. It's actually been good to sort of develop, a little bit more, what's the word, regularity in my day. But yeah, what defines me is the opposite actually.
Can we hang
Which
out?
is great. Yeah.
Oh, for
Yes.
real.
Yes, for
Oh,
real.
you
She's
mean
not even kidding.
No, I'm not.
No. Yeah.
yes.
Eileen's booking her ticket now to Erie. Yes. Right. I'll be right there. I'll be right
Yeah.
there.
That
Yes.
would be fun. My God, yeah.
Yes.
No, I would definitely have a lot of fun with you. Probably dangerously so,
Yes.
to be
Oh,
honest.
never. No, there's that thrill when you walk right up to the line of danger. I've
Oh,
never gone well
totally.
over it.
Okay, perfect. We're in step then.
That's
Okay,
good.
good.
It'll be a good balance. Yes.
So that's where the thrill comes from, knowing exactly where that line is. Woohoo,
Yep.
and walking right up to it.
Right.
Mhm. For sure. Oh my
Yes.
gosh, yeah. So I taught high school math. I don't know how many careers ago at this point. Very much understand. And it's not hard to lose high schoolers in math any day.
Oh,
You know?
no. No, can I just say high schoolers are probably where I really developed this, like,
Mhm.
because I think I'm very good at it at this point. And I think I really started because high schoolers, no, I'm going to take it back. Middle schoolers. They were the
Okay.
worst slash best.
Yes.
Because I love them so, so, so much. Everybody's like, oh, middle school. I hate middle school. Don't let me teach. Yeah, I don't want to teach middle school. I loved teaching middle schoolers because it was like this all the time. You never knew 5 minutes from now what your life was going to hold.
Yep.
And I kind of love that thrill. I wrangled them, but
Sure.
you feel a little bit like you're killing their spirit.
Mhm.
But high schoolers become a little bit more adult-like, a little bit. They all taught me different things. I also taught younger kids that for a very short time. I quit that job pronto. Speaking of things I did that were impulsively, and did I quit that job fast? I love them. They're adorable, but they're not artists yet. They're actually all artists, actually, is the problem, but they're
Mhm.
not going to be artists. It was a tricky blend for me. I like the kids who knew they kind of might end up somewhere in the arts, or at least knew they really, really liked it and would like to think about it. That's when I started to become interested in the kids.
I
Sure.
think my son's and he's only 9. He loves art. That has been one of our sort of things that we do. And it's funny because we talk about the science and art piece of it, which he loves both of. And he was fascinated by Titanoboa. And we watched this whole documentary about how they recreated it from the bones and the different size and how it would be shaped. And how they built the clay model from it. He was fascinated and he's been building with clay and Legos and all this stuff. So yeah, it's been fun to watch that sort of shape within him, that artist within him. And I'm like, please keep doing this because we need
Mhm.
more artists in this world.
Yes.
I think that's great. And I think you're doing a good thing by making sure that just make sure he has all the art materials he needs. I'm really glad to hear he's not doing it on an app.
No, oh no, we're hands deep. I mean, we've got paints. We have a whole art nook of things, so they can grab paints and clay and pastels, and
That's perfect.
there's just stuff everywhere. So yeah.
That's perfect. Sounds like you're doing it exactly right because if there's too much computer time at too young of an age, they don't develop the fine motor skills to advance. The other thing too is that it's a little tricky for me to talk about. Where I live now, we don't really have art supply stores, so we have crafter stores because I'm just out
Yeah.
in the rural Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
It's a problem for me that these stores are filled to the brim with things that are 80% done for you and you just kind of have to assemble it at the end. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like
Yes.
so that you
Yep.
can feel like an artist or something along those
Mhm.
lines. It's ruining the experience. It's a fake experience. It irks the heck out of me. And I'm just so glad that you're not doing something like that. Just keep that stuff away from them. No, I know. No, no, no. The two big things are apps too early and
Hmm.
these weird craft art like activities that I need them to go away, but I'm not in
Yeah.
charge of the world yet. So
Yeah,
Not yet.
I
Not yet.
can't tell you how many like cardboard box structures and different things
Mhm.
we've
yeah, cool.
made.
Good, 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 good. And let me say, now that I just sounded super mean, let me say this because because I
Please
mean this
do.
too. I actually think that those things exist because people want to make
Yeah.
artistic things. They have that
Yes.
impulse.
Yeah.
And they also feel like they have been. It's not they don't feel, they have been absolutely shortchanged by our educational system, which has cut
Mhm.
the arts for decades now.
Yeah.
So they don't feel like they have the tools. And so they want the shortcut. It's understandable.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
the problem is they want something that looks good at the end, and that's hard to do if you just like grab some clay or grab some paint
Mhm.
and start with skills that are lying dormant because you weren't really taught properly because the program is cut.
Yeah, I think my grandfather was on the side of like frustrated artists, because he was the one, he had they were very popular in the late 70s, early 80s, those paint by number
Yeah, paint by
ones.
numbers, sure.
Yeah, and he loved them. He was obviously older, so he had like one of like
Oh,
the Sistine Chapel. He had one
that's
of
a really, really complicated one.
it is. He loved them though. He would just dee. He had one of the Last Supper. Obviously, my Italian Catholic heritage is showing, but those are the things that he absolutely loved doing, and he would spend a lot of time doing that. So yeah, I would imagine that he was very much in that world of like frustrated artists, and this was a way that he could kind of get it out.
Yeah, no, 100%. I appreciate and love actually the impulse
Mm-hmm.
to do something like that, like
Mm-hmm.
artistic, and you want something you can hang on a wall.
Sure.
But they're not really art activities, and what they are, I'm going to say this,
Mm-hmm.
they're a little bit more self-soothing activities.
Mm.
Yes.
Think adult
Yes.
coloring book or
Mm-hmm.
something like that,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, nothing wrong with that. And I'm all for self-soothing. And I understand that most people have been sort of hogtied a little bit. Arts used to go all the way through. My mother went to school in Germany during World War II and got art all the way through. And now
Mm.
Americans don't do that. So it's just not
Yeah.
valued here.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is, of course, we're cutting off all these people at the knees, but yet they still have the impulse.
Hmm.
And so they go and do things like buy things that they can assemble and paint a little bit. And I get
Hmm.
that. I totally get it. Anyway, so it's more of a big societal problem that I have to solve.
Right.
It sounds really simple too. Sounds like we've
Uh,
got a simple solution.
Hmm.
yeah, right.
Not a
Oh,
problem. Not
they're
a
always the
problem.
dangerous ones, those simple solutions.
Yes.
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah.
So we have another question, but I am actually going to flip the script for just a second.
Go for it.
Cheryl.
Yes.
Oh, plot twist.
Yeah, you obviously brought Michelle on.
Hmm.
What's something you took away from your experience having her as a teacher? I would love to hear how she made an impact on your life.
Well, I get to say this to you, and it's kind of cool, is that I was very, very, very nervous about joining the art program in high school because I didn't think I had the chops. And it took me 2 years to join, which was exciting because I was like, okay, I come back and I get better. And that's good because Michelle, at that time, you had us interview. Like we brought our little portfolios. I didn't know what we were doing, so we just did these things, but it gave me a chance to be just a little bit brave in that art space. And I am forever grateful for it because you talked a little bit about self-soothing. What I found is that if I get frustrated with something, I know I need to use my hands.
Mm.
So for a while I was knitting. I still go back to the knitting. I love the knitting, right? Or I have a sketchbook. I just bought one recently. Or, I write. And those are all things that I can attribute back to that time in high school where you said, yeah, come on board and I'll teach you all sorts of fun things. It was like the one time in high school where I got to hang out with people that were of similar interest in terms of art. And everybody had a different thing, right? We had some people that were like really into interior decorating. We had some people that loved the scratch boards and the charcoal and the abstract. And I was just learning. I just thought it was all fascinating. We had somebody in our class, and I wish I could remember her last name, but her first name was Sharon. Sharon had such an amazing gift. I remember because I was sitting next to her when we started. I was like, oh, what are you bringing? And she had a picture. I guess you had us do something around being aware of the environment that was out there. And she drew this thing of the Statue of Liberty holding her nose because there was so much pollution. And it was like a mind-blowing experience to me because I was like, oh my God, I'm surrounded by so much cool. And I don't know, it was just a cool moment. I feel kind of bad that I didn't continue on with the art piece of it. I don't know if, look, I've seen your students and I'm like, there's no way.
Well,
There's
they're
no way I would
getting
have been
to
at
be,
that skull,
yeah.
at that skill, right? Because they're just, my goodness, are they amazing. But I go back to that time frame and I think that was like my place where I didn't feel, for lack of a better term, I didn't feel on the outside. Like I very much felt like a place that was on the inside. Thank you for that.
You are most welcome. And that is, you just described the magic of the art room.
Yeah.
I'll also say that it's the band room and the chorus room. I mean, there's other
It
rooms too
is.
like that, but
Mm-hmm.
they are very, very, as far as I'm concerned, they're sacred spaces in a high school.
Yeah.
And very few people really understand that they're the
Mm-hmm.
places where the kids go to just find their tribe.
Yeah.
You also, I hope, understand that those interviews were meant to help me help you. It
Oh
was
yeah. Oh no, definitely.
it was really like
Believe me, I didn't
what are you
I was thrilled to be invited to the dance. Like I was like, okay, here I come with my cheese ball drawings and I hope I get in.
Oh,
It was very
gosh.
exciting. Yeah, but I just remember the first time walking in. So again, very suburban Pennsylvania.
Oh,
We had a place that I think was called like Rainbow Arts or something. It was like right down the street from me.
oh,
And I remember the first time picking up like a box of pastels and I was like, this is so cool. I'm artsing. This is
yeah.
very cool. It was honestly like one of the highlights of high school for me because honestly, high school stinks. From my perspective, I was like, oh God, just let me get to college. But that was a place where I was like, okay, this one period in high school, I feel good. And that was great.
This just makes me feel so good because it's exactly the function of an art room. And it's not really about
Yeah.
making artists, although some of them will go on.
Oh yeah.
It's really about something else altogether. And it didn't
Mhm.
matter if you actually physically made drawings after that point because the lessons are in you. You look differently, meaning at the world, right?
Mhm.
You're a different person for having gone through that experience and a more attentive one, which is literally my fondest hope for certainly for high school.
Mhm.
If you end up going on and becoming an artist, that's great, but that's actually not the point in high school.
No.
So I think you got out of it exactly what you needed to get out of it.
Mhm.
That describes my fondest hope. So I'm thrilled to hear it.
Yeah. Thank you for it.
We did have a special art room back then. We did.
We did. We had a unique set of human beings. I knew some of them had gone on to make jewelry.
Mhm.
I think one of our class members from there is like an Emmy award-winning lighting artist.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah. Oh,
Mhm.
yeah. I
Mhm.
know who that
Mhm.
is.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and I know that somebody's in interior design from our class.
Right.
And then we had other people that just went on to do different things. But again, I think all of us just kind of took away that we found that that was our place just for one period in high school when everything else seemed like, that was the one place that you felt like, hey, like you could be yourself, you could learn things about yourself. It was just really cool. So,
I agree. And I would like to add there are sort of other issues as well. I mean,
mm,
there are kids who, maybe were a little bit bullied elsewhere. There were
yeah,
kids who I knew were gay before they knew they were gay,
right.
and
Hmm.
those kids all find their way to the art room because of that
They
sacred
do.
space I was talking about.
Hmm.
And that remains true. That remains true where I am now. There's something so special about that room and that it sort of invites people to be their best selves and their most
Hmm.
honest selves. It's a privileged position for me to have taught you guys. No kidding. I'm thrilled to hear what you just said because that would have been my fondest wish for all of you guys. So,
Yeah.
yay.
I wanted
Yay.
Cheryl to. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Sorry, she wasn't
Awfully nice of
expecting
you, Eileen.
it.
Thank you.
Yes. No. And this happens a lot, by the way, where she's like, "Hey, Cheryl." I'm like, "What? This is not the focus." I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to tell you thank you.
Thank you. My.
Thank you.
Oh,
So I'm going to steal Eileen's question. So I wanted to say thank you for everything that you did for me, especially in high school. And I've taken a lot of those lessons learned. Looking back on your life of impulsivity and just the people that you've met in life, if you had to thank one person or two people or a bunch of people, who would they be?
well, I guess about 15 years ago, I decided I needed to start thanking everybody.
It's
So
so
I kind of did.
important, and it's
Okay.
so important for people to hear
I
it
looked up old
too. Yeah.
nuns. It is. I mean, it was sort of hilarious because some were like confused by why are you contacting me? So going back and I thought this person truly made me. It was actually my high school art teacher,
Hmm.
Dennis Hall. I don't mind naming him. He's an artist in Philadelphia, or at least he was in Philadelphia.
Hmm.
And I decided to tell him that I'm so, so, so glad that they got an actual artist to be our art teacher as opposed to somebody, and forgive me, I don't want to offend anybody, but
Hmm.
I feel pretty strongly that if you're teaching in high school, especially if you're an art teacher, that you should have an art degree, meaning a BFA rather than a
Yes.
BA in art education.
Hmm.
I was so lucky that I had an actual artist, a practicing artist, teach me. And he was so great that I needed to find him and
Mm.
thank him. And I did. I found a nun who was hard on me in all the good ways, wouldn't take my crap.
Yeah.
And I found her. She was still living. Get this, she was about 87 years old. And you wouldn't even believe where I found her. I found her in the computer lab of Maria Goretti High School.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, she was a lab monitor. She was going to work till she died. That's a nun for you. And I loved her. And I loved her for being hard on me again. Because I used to do this thing. I was like a cheeky little brat when I was a kid. So, one thing that I used to do was I was so good at art so early that if
Mhm.
they were like, give us a book report, I would draw the book report.
Okay.
And it was so good that I always got A's. Like, so I just
Yeah.
got away without
Yeah.
writing. I could just
Mhm.
draw the book report. This nun,
Mhm.
she was awesome because she would say, like, listen, I know. I was doing some kind of a riff on a German artist because she was my German teacher. And
Mhm.
so I decided to do something that wasn't written, of course. And I did a master copy of an Albrecht Dürer famous painting. It's the Hare, the Rabbit painting by Albrecht Dürer. Anyway,
Okay.
so I did it, but I took some shortcuts. He was on it. Anyway, this was like one of those great lessons where I am being lazy. She's 100% right. And it
Mhm.
just sort of reminds you to kind of turn on your heel and towards the light again
Yeah.
and do the right thing, And to this day, weird, funny parentheses on that story, I did it over again, not because she made me to. She never even saw the second one. I did it over again because I was ashamed of myself. And I did the best copy of an Albrecht Dürer watercolor that a Philadelphia high schooler could do.
That's awesome.
But I fell in love with Durer, and this past summer, I
Mhm.
got to visit his home,
Oh,
and
you're kidding.
I know. I didn't
Wow.
even realize I was going to be in the city where his home was, and I got to see his home, I got to see his work, I got to see his workspace, I got to see his he had a kind of a workshop and then a print room, and the docent
Okay.
was pulling prints. Oh my god, it was like a religious experience. Anyway, so just to come full circle on that story. So I called up that nun though, and she was still working at 87.
Bless her.
And
Oh
I
my
called
goodness.
her and thanked her. So I have
Mhm.
lots of people like that I was like, I wouldn't have been here if not for this person. I wouldn't have been there if not for that person. And those
Mhm.
people have mostly, if I can reach them, they have been thanked. The one person who always knew how much, I think I thanked him plenty in life, but I would go back and thank my dad some more,
Yeah.
Mm.
who taught me so much. And usually not with words, just
Mhm.
by modeling the right behaviors. My dad had some tough things going on in his life, and I think there's a lot in place to kind of thwart him. And he persisted. He taught me coping mechanisms. He taught me so much to get through the rough stuff and to do it with humor and grace that I think I'll never be done thanking him. So even though he passed away in 1999,
Mhm.
I would go back and thank my dad some more.
Yeah, again, I think the thanking people. I don't know. I talked to some folks that seem to be oblivious to the idea that we should be thanking others and that somehow they made it all on their own when truly
Right.
others played such an important role in their
Mhm.
lives. And
Listen, we're a nation of people that right now everybody feels like they're kind of like a lone wolf or something. I don't even understand that. We're all connected to each other. Our family lines are changed, but we're all, I don't even understand thinking like, I guess I once met a guy, and this story comes up in true crime kind of dramas as well, too.
Mhm.
There's always some guy who goes through medical school. His wife works hard to get him through medical school too. And then the minute he's successful, he ditches her for a trophy, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
mhm,
The idea that you want to pretend that you were always this great physician or whatever, fill in the blank, it doesn't
Mhm.
matter, is so ridiculous and false. Everybody is resting on the shoulders or is standing on the shoulders of giants, and
Yeah.
your entire life is filled with them, including people that you barely even know. Sometimes you just get weird breaks from people that are strangers to you.
Mhm.
mhm.
And I just don't understand I've done this all on my own, and it's all ego talking, and
It is.
it's a huge problem for me.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there that are legends in their own minds.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a shame. It's
Oh,
really a shame. And again, I think about that and I try to thank as many people as possible just because you never know. You never know what it's going to mean to them. You
yeah.
never know. Sometimes those kind words really mean a lot.
You're 100% right that it could be wonderful and
Yeah.
meaningful to the other people, but I also think
Yep.
it does even more for you because it
Mhm.
just
Sure.
acknowledges that you are not the center of the universe. You are not
Yeah.
I don't mean you, Cheryl. I mean
Yeah.
any of us, obviously.
Yeah.
I think to just acknowledge somebody else's contributions to your life is a tremendous thing you can do for yourself as well. It's kind of like they talk about forgiveness this way too, that you don't forgive for the other person, you forgive for yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel that way about thanking people and showing gratitude.
Hmm.
I think it goes out the other way too, then. When you're more aware of thinking other people, you're probably more likely to want to help others as well. So
Yes.
you can thank others and then be an advocate, or you can be a mentor, or you can, do those things additionally that benefit others in that way. I think it comes into this big full circle of gratitude and thanks and giving to each other. And that just keeps the door open.
100%. I think it just tightens up the tapestry of humanity, you know what I mean? As opposed
Mhm.
to letting it kind of fray and whatever, because we're all doing our own thing.
Yeah, there's something to be said about wanting to feel like you're relevant. And sometimes those things, again, right? You feel relevant because somebody invested time in you,
Hmm.
or your students feel relevant because you showed them their own inner spark. And it was really up to them, obviously, to keep going with it. But sometimes if you don't even see that, it's so hard to get to that next step in your personal growth, right? So, yeah, I think that gratitude piece, because then you want to continue to share that, right? It's almost like, oh, that was really cool. Okay, what I'm doing is relevant. What I'm doing is it's helping people. Yeah, I just think it's so cool. I think the power of gratitude is just amazing.
No, I agree. And, it doesn't matter if people become what I've taught them or what
Yeah,
Eileen has taught her students. It doesn't matter because they're going to remember different things about your classroom experience anyway.
right,
And
right.
eventually they will hit an age where they'll realize that they're now in that position and that they take
Mm-hmm.
a role in the next generation underneath.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's
Hmm.
all a chain. It's all cyclical. It's all cyclical.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. So, Cheryl, I'm stealing your question now. So we'll just
Do
um
it. Do
so I
it.
actually have
Yep.
I'm making this two questions.
Hmm.
Again, sorry, this is me off the cuff. So the question really is, what advice would you give to others to be brave, choose fun over fear, and live this one life? I would want to break this up into two. One,
Hmm.
how do you do that in art? And then how do you do it for life?
Okay. Trick question now. I guess I have to say, I think it's the fun over fear part I have a little bit of a conflict with, because I think I have
Okay.
I've known from an early age that I have a very different concept of fun than almost every other person I've ever met. So
Hmm.
I am never seeking to have fun. I'm rarely seeking to have fun. And yet I'm one of the people that very often has the most fun in the room. I don't know how that happened, but I don't seek it out. And so I have a really conflicted notion of how that's done. So all I can do is preface what I'm about to say with that and then keep going. I don't really distinguish, honestly. Even I know you're looking for a separation, but I don't really distinguish between being brave in art and being brave in life. I think that if you are brave in life, you're brave in art. And if you're not, it just is what it is. I think that for me, I can only tell you the keys for me. And they are that number one, I am not the person who's the first person to have gone through anything that I've ever had, any experience I've ever had in my life. I am not the first person to go through that. Other people have before me. And so the answer to feeling calm and collected about that fact is to read those experiences or experience them in some other way. But for me, it tends to be books. And so I read a lot of books about the artists who came before me, the people that I admire, and what their lives and challenges were. And literally, there are advice books going back into ancient times about how to live a good life and how to live the self help section of the bookstore is actually quite old.
Yeah.
I go all the way back. I actually find a lot of, not a lot, not, many books that are on this topic in the sort of modern section to be a little bit wanting. And so I go way back. I love the Stoics. So I read the Stoic philosophers, and it sounds
Hmm.
heavy, but it's actually not. They're super cool guys. Seneca was a playwright who had some of the best advice ever. And people don't even know they're taking sometimes the advice of very, very ancient Greek and Roman guys. For example, I'm trying to think of another one, Epictetus, that's his name. Anyway,
Hmm.
he is a Stoic philosopher who was a former slave when he was writing. And the cool thing about him is that the actual serenity prayer that everybody on planet Earth knows, that came
Yeah.
directly from him. Not really directly, but that's
Yeah, yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
part of his philosophy. Basically,
Hmm.
to divide your life into things that you can control over here and
Hmm.
then things you can't control. And first of all, just divide them up. And then there's different coping mechanisms and plans of action for each one of those piles. That came from this former slave writing as a Stoic later. And it has trickled all the way down to us in the form of something like the Serenity Prayer and other things like it. The challenges that life brings us, they've all been fought. These challenges have been dealt with, coped with, plans to alleviate some of the suffering. It's all been dealt with before. I don't like to kind of reinvent the wheel, and I don't want to go to somebody who just like put a book out yesterday about it. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
This is the human family. The entire human family has to
Yeah.
deal with this, not somebody who's my age or younger. So I go back to the heavies for that. Whatever means you have of figuring out how other people dealt with the same thing, suffering and loss, good things too, by the way, how to lead a good life in a difficult time. That's one, is to go back to the wisdom of the rest of the human race, but whatever that looks like to you. So for some people, it's going to be poetry. For other people, it's going to be, for me, it's books. I would just go back and try to investigate ways, things that are troubling you. What are some of the solutions that have come up historically by the smartest people, way smarter than me, have come up with? So that's what I go to. Let's see. I'm also sort of freakishly good at something. I think I blame Catholics for this. I'm sort of freakishly good at something called reframing. I went to 12 years
Mm.
at Catholic school, just like Cheryl did.
Same. I was gonna say same. Hmm.
And things that would sort of cause me to go into a tailspin if I weren't centered enough or whatever. I've gotten really good at just terrible disappointments, terrible loss, recasting the entire narrative in a way that makes it feel differently, like a challenge or whatever. I mean, let me give you a real dumb example, because there's powerful examples that I almost don't want to talk about. But here's a dumb one. Somebody cuts me off I'm in traffic, somebody cuts me off in a really bad way, almost causes an accident. I could lay on the horn, I could have my road rage incident, or I can immediately tell myself that person's spouse just left them. You can kind of come up
Yeah.
with a narrative that's totally made up, probably not even true, doesn't matter. It's for me. So to get yourself out of jams, I'm so good at that. It's not even funny. Like, it doesn't matter if the most horrible thing in my life just happened or a little traffic fender bender almost happened.
Yeah.
Reframing is like the key to success for me, right? So that's a good one. And it helps me to just rebound better, to kind of come back better. So let's see. I foster openness all the time. I don't ever, even when I think I know what's actually going on with a person or a situation, I try to ask the kind of questions that will help me understand if I'm wrong. I kind of like to know when I'm wrong. Those are the things I do. I tend to be super brave. Oh, this is a key. This is a key. I am not really brave when it comes to define the terms a little bit. I consider bravery can be dumb or it can be smart, you know what I mean? Or it can be profound or not so brave. And
Okay.
so there was an incident when I was young when I had an opportunity to jump out of an airplane with a parachute, whatever that's called.
Skydiving, yeah.
Yeah, skydiving, that's the word. My dad was like, absolutely not. No, absolutely not. Not going to happen. Not going to let it happen. I'm not going to lend you the money. Even if you have the money, don't care. Not going to happen. Right. So he was like that. I was so mad. It turned out that, of course, one of the kids who did go, the parachute did open, but it conked his helmet forward and asphyxiated him. So when he landed unconscious.
Oh,
and
my
he
heavens.
broke something. I don't even, it was 100 years ago now, it feels like. So he broke some stuff, but he lived. And I just remember at that moment that my dad kind of went back to him and I said something about him and told him that. And he was like, we have put too much into our children. You know what I mean? Like, there was a way that you could just throw away just by thrill seeking or whatever what he had invested and worked so hard for. And as I already mentioned, he had really had some obstacles in his life. And what he overcame to raise his family and do the right thing. And then I was just going to like throw it away. And this other kid really, it was a scare. I was scared for him. I was scared that he broke something.
Sure.
But he could have died. I could have died if I'd gone. So I believe that there's that, why would I do that? Why would I do that? It's for ego, right? It's to say I skydive, I did this amazing thing. But there are other ways to be brave. And the only reason I'm ever brave is for ideas and ideals. So for bigger things outside of myself and larger than myself. So one is more about my ego, and the other one is the opposite, actually. It's about other things outside of myself, and it causes a humility to set in a good way. I really separate those issues, and I have no problem whatsoever being brave for ideas outside of myself and ideals that I think are important. That's a discernment process that, again, comes probably from my Catholic upbringing. You think about it, what matters to you in your life, and of course you're going to do the right thing for those things. Do I need to skydive? No, I don't. And I don't even need to say that I did. Like, why? I don't want to take anybody's fun away. People love doing that stuff. Whatever, that's great. But if I were going to be a skydiver, or I needed to soldier in a war or something like that, that would be different. But for me to just do it for one day, just to say I did it, it was clear to me after the fact that it kind of felt a little bit like I was spitting on my dad's hard work.
Got it.
There were only 2 incidents like that where he absolutely put his foot down, and both of them were just like, they're too dangerous for you, and we have built this thing, and no, there are risks worth taking and there are risks not worth taking. And it just really came home because the one guy literally landed unconscious and broke some bones. Horrific. Could have, it could have been way worse, obviously. But that was a message that stayed with me. So for me, I separate reasons to be brave. It just kind of reminds me a little bit of, there's always like that high school kid, I always want to say boy, high school boy, let's go there.
Why not?
Who decides one day, great stretch of road, he's just going to see what his car can do. You know what I mean? It's terrifying.
Yes.
Right? As a parent now, it's terrifying.
Right.
And I was that kid. I needed to have my dad just like sit on me and say, no, he's dangerous. That was a true impulse thing. It's not like paying and going to the skydiving place, but it really was a profound lesson for me. You have to ask why you're being brave, And so if it's for something that's outside of yourself, bigger than yourself, then it's almost certainly worth it. If it's an ego-driven thing, not worth it to me.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's as much as I like to be open to experiences and all, but I also did a lot of dumb things too. Like, by the time that happened, I'd already done so much of my own dumb stuff. I used to give in to every dare, like people dare stuff, and I'd be like, oh yeah. So I had that in me. And then I guess I was just ramping it up by the time I was asking my dad for the skydiving thing, you know.
I think sometimes that's the finding of the line, though, right?
Right.
Hmm.
You're like, that one, nope, that one felt a little too far for me.
Yep.
And I know where to listen to my gut the next time this comes around. I think
Hmm.
there's a sort of right sizing for yourself in some of those moments. And hopefully it isn't too far, right? I know
Right.
that that does happen.
Oh, it definitely does. And, you know, a lot of the things that I was alluding to that I did before that, like my dad knew about none of them, you know, so I
Mhm.
could have, I was only lucky up until that point. And then I
Yeah.
suddenly needed permission, you know, because he had to sign a form or something. And that's the only
Ah.
reason it didn't work.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, so I just feel like I was lucky to
Yeah.
have been okay up to that point. But yeah, I did find the line, and I think it's because he said, "Here it is."
Right. Right.
I'm drawing this
Right,
That,
right.
in paint on the
yes.
floor, not in
Hmm.
sand. Like
No.
you'll see it.
Yes, 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 yes. Neon.
Yeah.
Michelle, I think this was such a great conversation. So, the one question that we ask at the end of all of these is, what is your next this is happening thing? What's your next great adventure?
Oh,
Yeah.
get
I
ready.
can't wait.
I can't wait.
Oh, yeah. So at a university, if you put in an application for you have cool things to do, they'll give you time off and it's a sabbatical. And I had one awarded last year for next year. So
Oh,
like,
nice.
right now I know I have it coming, but I'm not
Hmm.
on it yet. So I have a sabbatical year next year. And I have millions of plans and lots and lots and lots of travel coming up. Basically, it's to reestablish relationships with some of these field schools, like we talked about the one in Belize. There's another one in northern Spain that we were just on the verge of, you know, inking the paperwork before the pandemic hit. We're going to try to get that squared away so that our students can go there and we can work on bones in northern Spain. And it's a very cool project because it's a gigantic ossuary
Oh.
filled with Charlemagne's rear guard. That's how old. Uh-huh, yeah. All the people who died, minus Roland, his nephew. Roland, because he was royalty, got sent back, but the rest of the bodies are right there. And so we're gonna get to
Wow.
work on those things, those projects, I should say. So I'm going to be doing some of that. I'm going to be doing some work in Germany. I'm still trying to figure out some of the work in Italy, and I'm going to be doing a retreat in Ireland as well, an art retreat of some sort. So I'm going to be gone for a while to reestablish some of these relationships, and I'm going to have a forensic arts show that's going to be a traveling exhibition, and that got sidelined too. It was actually supposed to open May of 2020. Her.
Oh, no.
Oh
Okay.
dear.
So
Yeah.
Well.
it's mostly together. I've got to finalize it, and you know, we kind of lost some steam from March when we school closed and everything closed
Mhm.
to May, and kind of get that show together or reorganized slightly differently now and put it on the road. So I've got that. I'm going to be giving some lectures to coroners and law enforcement agents in various places. So, you know, I give talks around, so I'll be doing that all over the place too. Yeah, lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of stuff happening next year. We're talking starting in May. So,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So exciting. So
That
exciting,
Yeah,
though.
is.
yeah.
Yeah.
So those are the
Yeah.
things. And speaking of getting over our fears, everything I've said so far is completely within my normal life.
Mhm.
But I'm thinking of going much farther on one trip, and it's a little scary to me. So I'm a little terrified to go to the other side of the world. I'm not talking about
Okay.
Europe. I'm talking about New Zealand, Australia, that region.
Oh, yes.
And I've
Mhm.
never been that far, and the flight lengths kind of scare me. So we'll see
Yeah.
how
Yes.
brave I am. I don't know if that's going to
Yes.
pan out, but we'll see. Ah,
Oh, that's
so
So
amazing.
exciting.
yeah, so
So
it's kind of the
exciting.
move forward. A lot of the projects and the exhibitions, and with regard to forensic art.
If people are looking for some of the work that you do, where can they find you?
Oh, yes. Well, let's see. The most comprehensive coverage of some of the casework I've done was on Reuters. Reuters is one of the big sort of wholesalers of news, Reuters for your listeners.
Yep.
Mhm.
Reuters investigates the body trade. I had a lot to say on the subject of how human beings are not properly utilized when they donate their bodies to science. And so that caught the attention of some investigative reporters there. And they contacted me and they did a lot of work on that. So if you just Google Reuters investigates the body trade, Reuters investigates is like their spotlight unit. You guys might have been familiar with that from that movie about the Catholic Church.
Oh,
There's
yes.
long
Okay.
form journalism is what I'm saying. And a lot of
Yeah.
places will have a whole different collection of reporters that are doing long form journalism. It takes years to report on this stuff.
Right.
Right.
Got it.
So that's what happened with Reuters. Reuters Investigates is their long-term projects. And so
Got it.
they interviewed me at length. They came multiple times. There's lots of video and whatnot. So if you just Google Reuters Investigates the body trade, you can see the whole thing. And I think they ended up doing it in 9 parts. I was in the middle of a sting operation when they took it over. And that was perfect because I did not want to do a sting operation.
Okay. Okay.
And you will see the results of their sting operation in the other stories. There's 9 pieces, and number 5 is my story, but the rest
Okay.
of them all kind of grew from my story. So
Fascinating.
there's that. That's the main thing. But you could if you just Google my name and forensic art, you're going to see all kinds of stuff because there were Reuters. I was on Snap Judgment. I guess I'm supposed to be. I don't know. I'm not holding my breath, but they claim to be coming in February. Unsolved Mysteries is coming to film. I'm going to be on an episode of Unsolved Mysteries, apparently.
How cool.
So exciting. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, Netflix is coming to our little burg, I guess. So
Oh my goodness.
so that's supposed to happen in February while I'm still in school. My students are beyond excited because
I bet.
it's our
Yeah.
classroom. They're going to be doing the filming in the classroom. So that's happening too. That's supposed to come out the following, like season 3 of Unsolved Mysteries.
Okay.
But that hasn't happened yet. So don't look for that yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Yeah, no.
Not
But
yet.
when people are
Not
listening
yet.
to this in a few more years because it's grown
Mhm.
so big and it's
There you go.
amazing, they can come back
Exactly.
and take a look at it. So it'll be
Exactly.
great.
That's right. It should be season 3. And there's so much out there on me now because the New York Times or Washington Post, like a lot of them have covered me or some casework that I've done. And so if you just
Okay.
Google Michelle Vitali and forensic arts, you're going to come up with stuff. There's no doubt.
Okay. Terrific.
At least the forensic part. All right. But I'm a regular artist too. It's like easy to forget.
Well, that too.
Sure. Yeah, that too. Yeah.
I mean, where can
Yeah.
people find your art?
Oh, that's just on Instagram. What's my Instagram? I think it's my first initial last name and 2005. That's my Instagram.
That's what it is.
Is
what
that
it
right?
is.
Thank you.
Yep. Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's just my regular art practice. And sometimes there's forensic stuff there, but usually not. It's just usually my regular art practice, including nonsense. Like every Friday night I draw. So whatever, good or bad, it goes up on Instagram,
Yep.
That's great.
Yep. And it's lovely. It's like one of my favorite places to go.
Oh,
So
thanks. Yeah, sometimes
again,
okay.
again on Instagram, it's mvitali, Vitali, and then 2005.
Right.
If you're looking at the Instagram.
Yeah, there is. I've let it go dormant during the pandemic, but I'm about to start it up again too. There is a Facebook page, separate one from the one you see me on, Cheryl, which is, I think it's Michelle Vitali Forensic Arts or Forensic Artist or something like that. Anyway.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to join that.
That has all
Right.
it's my own version of all my casework and some other interesting things that are out there, out and about that I pass along.
Yeah, I want to go look that one up because
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know about that one. Oh, yeah.
So that's there, and it used to be quite lively and good. And then it was an emergency. Pandemic happened, and it was like all hands on deck for the classroom because I was literally teaching studio classes in this room like this. So kind of wacky.
Wow.
Yeah. But there's plenty of places, so no worries.
Awesome.
Michelle, it's truly been a pleasure having you. I am so grateful that Cheryl reached out and brought you on. I could probably keep talking to you for more hours. So thank you so much for being here. To our listeners, thank you so much from Cheryl and myself as your co-hosts. We are so grateful to keep this going and to have you here on You Only Go Once, continuing to live this one great life that we all have. Thank you. Bye.